characteristics, in my opinion, as authors write to understand the world and mathematicians explain it through algorithms, architects create visions which anticipate futures and ways to impact the world. In my course, I explore solutions to problems of habitation, density, industrialization, and interaction that architects have given through scales since the 1920s. Architecture is making, and I agree with your instructions, and I also guide my students to open their belief space and minds with broader sense open to the tools, language, and grammar that we use to project through those scales. So that movie, which is so inspiring to me because of the theme, was edited and done by the Eames. And these are Charles and Ray Eames, the author, thinkers, and still a source of inspiration for many designers today. So before we see the movie, let's learn about the personalities that create.
We weren't sure quite what he was. Was he an architect, was he a designer, was he a filmmaker? But what he was, obviously, was something we all wanted to be.
She made paintings out of what she was surrounded by. Everything she touched, she turned into something magical.
For them, these names like painter and architect, they weren't job descriptions. They were ways of looking at the world. Modern design was born from the marriage of art and industry. The Eames office was born from the marriage of Ray Kaiser, a painter who rarely painted, and Charles Eames, an architecture school dropout who never got his license.
They give shape to America's 20th century.
And it all began with a chair.
And they just designed furniture, they'd be in the pantheon. It's the multifaceted nature of the career that is extraordinary.
For 4 decades, Nino.
So you can watch it on YouTube. It is under the title of the Eames, the architect and the painter. But it was just to give you an essence of who they were. So they were not normal people, they were really nice. They were aware of their context, so they used what they most of the days. So because they were in Los Angeles, they used everything at their disposal, which included, of course, the video and the film and the materials available related to Hollywood. So I really like the way they approach design because they were completely unconventional. And I think that creative thinking and innovation in design has to come from people who are more conventional and who have to look at the world with a completely different lens. So when Charles Eames was asked what design was for the exhibition What is Design at the Decorative Arts Museum in 1969, these were the answers that he gave, and I hope that we can listen to them.
What is your definition of design, Mr. Eames? One could describe design as a plan for arranging elements to accomplish a particular purpose.
Is design an expression of art?
I would rather say it's an expression of purpose. It may, if it is good enough, later be judged as art.
Is design a craft for industrial purposes?
No, but design may be a solution to some industrial problems.
What are the boundaries of design?
What are the boundaries of problems?
Is design a discipline that concerns itself with only one part of the environment?
No.
Is it a method of general expression?
No, it is a method of action.
Is design the creation of an individual?
No, because to be realistic, one must always recognize the influence of those that have gone before.
Is design a creation of a group?
Very often.
Is there a design ethic?
There are always design constraints, and these often imply an ethic.
Does design imply the idea of products that are necessarily useful?
Yes, even though the use might be very subtle.
Is it able to cooperate in the creation of works reserved solely for pleasure?
Who would say that pleasure is not useful?
Ought form to derive from the analysis of function?
The great risk here is that the analysis may be incomplete.
Can the computer substitute for the designer?
Probably, in some special cases, but usually the computer is an aid to the designer.
Does design imply industrial manufacture?
Not necessarily.
Is design used to modify an old object through new techniques?
This is one kind of design problem.
Is design used to fit up an existing model so that it is more attractive?
One doesn't usually think of design in this way.
Is design an element of industrial policy?
If design constraints imply an ethic, and if industrial policy includes ethical principles, then yes, design is an element in industrial policy.
Does the creation of design admit constraint?
Design depends largely on constraints.
What constraint?
The sum of all constraints. Here is one of the few effective keys to the design problem. The ability of the designer to recognize as many of the constraints as possible. His willingness and enthusiasm for working within these constraints. Constraints of price, of size, of strength, of balance, of surface, of time, and so forth. Each problem has its own peculiar list.
Does design obey laws?
Aren't constraints enough?
Are there tendencies and schools in design?
Yes, but these are more a measure of human limitations than of ideals.
Is design ephemeral?
Some needs are ephemeral. Most designs are ephemeral.
What design to tend towards ephemeral or towards permanence?
Those needs and designs that have a more universal quality tend toward relative permanence.
How would you define yourself with respect to a decorator, an interior architect, a stylist?
I wouldn't.
To whom does design address itself? To the greatest number, to the specialist or the enlightened amateur, to a privileged social class?
Design addresses itself to the need.
After having answered all those questions, do you feel you have been able to practice the profession of design under satisfactory conditions or even optimal conditions?
Yes,
Have you been forced to accept compromises?
I don't remember being forced to accept compromises, but I have willingly accepted constraints.
What do you feel is the primary condition for the practice of design and for its propagation?
A recognition of need.
What is the future of design?
missing words in here. So I like his definition of design as a problem, of the designer as a problem solver, which works is mediated by constraints. Implies size, strength, balance, surface, time. Today we will say by the source of the material, the amount of energy employed in its building, as well as in its retrofitting into the environment, what's used in terms of usability and recyclability. His answer to the future of the design could well have been answered, I think, in which will be the future problems that designers are going to face. What is the need for action? And in that sense, the thesis of my course, following Charles Dean's idea that designers are creative problem solvers that will find solutions where there is a need for action, is that pressing environmental and social problems around the world demand design solutions. The world needs some instructions, and I think that in my opinion, designers have a role to play on that. Problems such as the increase in population growth, the accelerated depletion of resources, global habits of pollution and waste, made us aware that our designs and projects have implications at bigger and smaller contexts and scales. And that is why in my course I frame it to the idea of the scale. And that is my new idea. Using the famous Inns and Wilson's powers of 10, which many of you have probably watched in your high school. Powers of 10 is a 1968 American documentary short film written and directed by them, released in 1977. The film depicts the relative scale of the universe in factors of 10, and it is an adaptation of the 1957 book Cosmic View by Keith's book. Powers of 10 take us on an adventure in magnitudes. Starting at a picnic by the lakeside in Chicago, this famous film transports us to the outer reaches of the universe. So let's see if we get to today.
The picnic near the lakeside in Chicago was the start of a lazy afternoon, early one October. We begin with a scene 1 meter wide, which we view from just 1 meter away. Now every 10 seconds we will look from 10 times farther away, and our field of view will be 10 times wider. This square is 10 meters wide, and in 10 seconds the next square will be 10 times as wide. Our picture will center on the picnickers, even after they've been lost to sight. 100 meters wide. The distance a man can run in 10 seconds. Cars crowd the highway. Powerboats lie at their docks. The colorful bleachers are Soldiers Field. This square is 1 kilometer wide, 1,000 meters. The distance a racing car can travel in 10 seconds. We see the great city on the lake shore. 10 to the 4th meters, 10 kilometers. The distance a supersonic airplane can travel in 10 seconds. We see first the rounded end of Lake Michigan, then the whole Great Lake, 10 to the 5th meters. The distance an orbiting satellite covers in 10 seconds. Long parades of clouds, the day's weather in the Middle West. 10 to the 6th, a 1 with 6 zeros. 1 million years. Soon the Earth will show as a solid sphere. We are able to see the whole Earth now, just over a minute along the journey. The Earth diminishes into the distance, but those background stars are so much farther away, they do not yet appear to move. A line extends at the true speed of light. In 1 second, it half crosses the tilted orbit of the moon. Now we mark a small part of the path in which the Earth moves about the Sun. Now the orbital paths of the neighbor planets, Venus and Mars, then Mercury. Entering our field of view is the glowing center of our solar system, the Sun, followed by the massive outer planets, swinging wide in the big orbits. That outer orbit belongs to Pluto. A fringe of a myriad comets too faint to see completes the solar system. Ten to the 14th. As the solar system shrinks to one bright point in the distance, our sun is plainly now only one among the stars. Looking back from here, we know 4 southern constellations, still much as they appear from the far side of the Earth. This square is 10 to the 16th meters, 1 light year, not yet out to the next star. Our last 10-second step took us 10 light years further. The next will be 100. Our perspective changes so much in each step now that even the background stars will appear to converge. At last we pass the bright star Arcturus and some stars of the Dipper. Normal but quite unfamiliar stars and clouds of gas surround us as we traverse the Milky Way galaxy. Giant steps carry us into the outskirts of the galaxy. And as we pull away, we begin to see the great flat spiral facing us. The time and path we chose to leave Chicago has brought us out of the galaxy along a course nearly perpendicular to its disk. The 2 little satellite galaxies of our own are the clouds of Magellan. 10 to the 22nd power, 1 million light years. Groups of galaxies bring a new level of structure to the scene. Glowing points are no longer single stars, but whole galaxies of stars seen as one. We pass the big Virgo cluster of galaxies among many others, 100 million light years out. As we approach the limit of our vision, we pause to start back home. This lonely scene, the galaxies like dust, is what most of space looks like. This emptiness is normal. The richness of our own neighborhood is the exception. The trip back to the picnic on the lakefront will be a sped-up version, reducing the distance to the Earth's surface by 1 power of 10 every 2 seconds. In each 2 seconds, we will appear to cover 90% of the remaining distance back to Earth. Notice the alternation between great activity and relative inactivity, a rhythm that will continue all the way into our next goal, a proton in the nucleus of carbon atom beneath the skin in the hand of the sleeping man at the picnic. Ten to the 9th meters, 10 to the 8th, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We are back at our starting point. We slow up at 1 meter, 10 to the 0 power. Now we reduce the distance to our final destination by 90% every 10 seconds. Each step much smaller than the one before. At 10 to the minus 2, 1/100th of a meter, 1 centimeter, we approach the surface of the hand. In a few seconds, we will be entering the skin, crossing layer after layer from the outermost dead cells into a tiny blood vessel within. Skin layers vanish in turn. An outer layer of cells, felty collagen. The capillary containing red blood cells and a roughly lymphocyte. We enter the white cell. Among its vital organelles, the porous wall of the cell nucleus appears. The nucleus within holds the heredity of the man in the coiled coils of DNA. As we close in, we come to the double helix itself, a molecule like a long twisted ladder whose rungs of paired bases spell out twice, in an alphabet of 4 letters, the words of the powerful genetic message. At the atomic scale, the interplay of form and motion becomes more visible. We focus on one commonplace group of 3 hydrogen atoms bonded by electrical forces to a carbon atom. 4 electrons make up the outer shell of the carbon itself. They appear in quantum motion as a swarm of shimmering points. At 10 to the minus 10 meters, 1 angstrom, we find ourselves right among those outer electrons. Now we come upon the 2 inner electrons held in a tighter swarm. As we draw toward the atom's attractive center, we enter upon a vast inner space. At last, the carbon nucleus, so massive and so small. This carbon nucleus is made up of 6 protons and 6 neutrons. We are in the domain of universal modules. There are protons and neutrons in every nucleus, electrons in every atom, atoms bonded into every molecule out to the farthest galaxy. As a single proton fills our sea, we reach the edge of present understanding. Are these some quarks in intense interaction? Our journey has taken us through 40 powers of 10. If now the field is 1 unit, then, when we saw many clusters of galaxies together, it was 10 to the 40th, or 1 and 40 zeros.
So magic can be important for this, because this is what I have. So, no, I will continue. That is the last video. But I would like to ask you, in which ways do you think that this field is related to what you have learned so far in this course? So, I know that you have talked about bodies, political bodies in space. You have talked about different points of view in the approach to a design and architecture. You have talked about the knowledge or the sensible approach to a site through the work of Andy Goldsworthy. So, in which ways do you think that this field is related to what you have learned so far? Can anybody answer the question?
Question for the audience.
Yes, repeat the question. So, in which ways this field and the trans-scala approach to design is related, but mostly in what we have seen now, to what you have learned so far in this course? No. Yes?
Can everyone hear that? Could you stand up and say that? Is that right? Just so everyone can hear your versions.
Look at it one way, but you can zoom out and see it a totally different way. You see the whole world in a small space instead of zoomed in just on the commentary.
It's great. Can you stand up? Jack?
Everything is connected in a way that our structure, even though it's on Earth, it's like something, it's part of the universe now. Like looking at things going back and things going closer, there's this sort of like, this connectivity that's not understood, and that's going to take time to look at it.
Very good.
I think it is related.
And try to say it loud enough so we don't have to repeat.
I think the video we just watched has some connection with, we can start things from a texture and how two materials or three materials drawn together, and you look at it and touch it in a microwave, and it will be far away like Wisconsin architecture space that was drawn with concrete, and how they reflect light, different light, the blue light or the other light, and people have that motion of building in the microwave.
Besides micro and macro. Very good.
With the first video about design, with pushing into design, and you're talking about create design, like how we design, like we will rely on your idea. I just thought that I kind of like how we really kind of project our ideas, so that we can secure design, that's what we
So for those aspects, design is about making your thing and using the computer as an aid to make an idea. Anybody else? Last one. You have an idea. Give it to me. No?
The relationship of scales comes to mind with this. How we understand things at different scales and sizes of things is what that video made me think of. And it's more than just steps. It's a progression. So it's not just a building or an object or a site. It's everything in between. And that's what it made me think of.
Did you hear upstairs? No.
So the video made me think of how, as designers, we always need to think of scale. And scale is not so much as an incremental thing, like a site or building or person, but it's everything that's in between it. And I think the video actually did a really good job of focusing on our understanding of that, or showing us that. And that was really interesting.
Thank you. So we have a lot of designers of creativity. So what is really important is that you see as you are more fixed and critical how beautiful this is really. So it's not just that you are seeing and getting whatever it is given to you. That is not useful. It's only useful if you transform that information for what it is useful in your designs. And that is the way this is useful in the years to come. So let's go back to the powers of 10. And we will start our tour, and I will try to start a journey with you in which I think I will make a relationship between the film and the scale And what is that related? What is the relationship between that and design at every scale? So we will start our journey with the human scale. And I know that you have been taught about the importance of the human scale at every scale of design. This is the scale of the body, so the area 1 meter square is at the heart of human experience, the scale of human convenience, conversation, and touch. And therefore, the scale of our everyday actions in the surrounding environment. The size of a bike path, house elements with events for one person or two close together, or a desktop and our everyday working space. And this was the everyday work of the inns. This is the way they did the film. So they didn't have Google Earth back then. So that was impossible. And now it is unimaginable that we cannot go and zoom through the scales. For them, they didn't have the tools and they had to invent the way to do it. That is the best part of the film to me. The big idea of trans-escalarity, but also the invention of how to do it when you don't have the tools yet. And that is projection in design. So this is the everyday, and this is what they produce. They produce an array of films, chairs, furniture. They also produce casts for the work, for the people who were injured. And I strongly recommend that this scale that you watch the film Objectified, because I feel that they are telling us what is the way we should design at this scale, but more important, that the world is full of waste, and it is not longer about the design of an object, but also how we retrofit that object into cycle once we are not using it anymore. 10 to the minus 1 is 10 centimeters. So that is the intimate scale. That of a hand close-up, the lack of a gate, an individual flower or leaf, the detail of tree, bark, grain or marble, a frog, a little spider web. In architecture, this is the size of joints. The wooden houses, slabs, or the steel armor of our concrete structures. At this scale, I would say, every detail makes a difference. And that is why I try to show my students to work with joints and see how important they are for the result of a project. In the exploration of material, I would like to highlight the work of the Mediated Matter Lab at the Media Lab at MIT, where they have been working in a very similar way to Andy Wadsworthy, but in a much more hybridized way, with silk. So this is a silk pavilion, and this silk pavilion is a hybrid of man-made and organic creation that paid the work of 6,500 workers in order to construct this scaffold. At the same scale, I would say that many problems have been solved in design through technology. And that is the work, as I will explain later, of Mr. Fuller, the group Archigram in London. Or for instance, the result of the work of the life-changing places like which have designed this city car, which is for the last mile between the public means of transport and your house. Increasing dimensions to a space 10 meters across, one arrives at the domestic scale. The size of a single house or a small garden, the domain of a family in some parts of the world. One can hear a human voice clearly from 10 meters away, but one cannot touch and can barely distinguish facial features. This is also the scale of a tree's territory, the height and breadth of its canopy, its drip line and extent of its facial ground, and the only animal bigger than 10 meters in the world are whales. The scale of the houses that we inhabit is the domestic scale. And at this scale, I look into the explorations within the box of Palladio, Le Corbusier, Terrani, and Eisman, as well as those explorations breaking the box with Frank Wright, Niels van der Rohe, and Lorena. And I try to explain how important or how we can fail at the domestic scale if we don't take into account bigger scales and context. So this is the Niels van der Rohe house, Illinois, Chicago. And it is situated at the floodplain of a river, and because maybe when Niels was designing, it wasn't the 100-year flood, he didn't realize that he was situating the house in this flooded basin. If he would have known, I would say, he would have placed the house a little up into the parcel. And this is the house that the Eames themselves designed in California, which is, as you can see, in between, within the box and breaking the box, but it's an exterior interior full of their furniture design. I would say that for this environmental crisis, at this scale, someone who should be mentioned is Mr. Fuller. He was actually from Milton, Massachusetts, and he spent his summers in the Peacock, what is the name? Penobscot Bay in Maine. So he says that his design bleeds from his experiences at this island. He worked with control and measure environment, and he said that all building was the biotechnology and physically the local industry that inspired his work. In any event, Fuller designed this house, which is called the Dimension House. This is his first house project and was designed to work in any part of the world and was far in advance, it was advanced to his time. Fuller's view of truly mobile environment control is one which would demand from the veterans also local land supplies lines of power, water, sanitation, so that the house will be able to function autonomously, either completely or for long periods of time. He designed the house in a way that could be delivered by air, and these are the parts of the components of that house. So in these days where we are struggling with hazards, for instance, the city of Manhattan was shut down for, 2 weeks without electricity or supplies. This would have been a really excellent idea. So he designed this mechanical wing. Imagine the evacuation of a city in which each family with 6 people would be allowed one trailer unit and would be able to survive for 2 weeks without any connection to the world. Our next scale, 10 to the second, an area of 100 meters square just over 2 acres, is of civic and palatial scale. Of a city block with buildings, jobs, streets, and sidewalks, encompassing many homes or businesses. Of a large plaza, stadium, or the base of a skyscraper. The Freeway Rose Garden in Boston, the lawn around it, and the basketball court nearby all fit within such a space. So there's the Taj Mahal with its 4 minarets. In the countryside, 2 acres is the size of a small pasture or a garden that will support a family with food. The giant sequoia, the largest known individual organism, reaches 100 meters in height. The Rockefeller Center is at this scale, and the Illa Diagonal in Barcelona is as well. And I will argue that, well, the first one is 300 meters long, the second is high, the second 300 meters long. So it would be nice to have an essay talking about the comparison of both of them. Is it 12:53? How many times do we have left?
We're a little over.
Okay, so I will try to go more quickly. So 10 to the 3 is the neighborhood scale, and I will argue that this to me is the most interesting scale that I can thought of. 1,000 meters is 1 kilometer. And at this scale, I think that one should start to talk about the urbanistic project. The urbanistic project is that has the size that enables it to be able to be done in a framework of time that is possible for the governments, politicians, architects, and Manuel de Sola Morales and John Busquets have, in a way, distinguished 10 lines in that approach of the urbanistic project, which are synthetic gestures, and I will go very quickly over them. Key buildings with urban synergies, and which are strategic projects. Multiplied grounds, which are large urban artifacts, which have to do with infrastructure and mobility in the city. Tactical maneuvers, which are minimalistic projects. Reconfigure surface, within which we can find this Seattle sculpture park, from which we ready or the High Line in Manhattan. Basement allegations, which are really urban projects which grow fragments in the city which are autonomous. There are traditional views which in this country are supported by new urbanists, which go back to the revival approach. The recycled territories, large-scale landscape projects that have the potential to become focuses of urban